we've got to be aspirational. I've got to be able to say, this is going to be hard. We need to move on with this. What we're doing here makes a difference. Regions are defined by their downtowns and the identity. And whether you live in Roseville or Folsom, what downtown Sacramento's perception is important to the identity of this region. And we want to be proud of it. We want to continue that momentum.
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Thank you to our sponsors, Scholl's Brick and Rogaski, Three Bridges Consulting, Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips, and Connect Strategies. Michael Ault is the Executive Director of Downtown Sacramento Partnership. That means he's the point person for businesses located in the downtown core of the capital of California. For context, the larger Sacramento area is home to 2.5 million people. I asked Michael to be our guest for several reasons. Principal amongst them being he's on a 25-year run in a very hard CEO job. He's been able to attract and retain top talent at his organization. And from what I know about Michael, he maintains a high drive in this job, even after 25 plus years. Michael, our listeners are leaders and emerging leaders, and we're all excited to learn from you. Please tell the people where you are today and say hello to the listeners of Together at the Top.
Excited to be here. I'm currently in my office in downtown Sacramento overlooking Cesar Chavez Park, which is smack dab in the middle of all the public sector buildings from the city, county, federal buildings, and on the other side of the street, California State Capitol, and home to the Central Business District here in downtown's capital.
Really cool. Appreciate that. You ready to dig in and get rolling?
Ready to dig in. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Hey, NBC News ran a story this week in which it was reported that downtown Sacramento is bucking a national trend, and that while most cities are losing businesses downtown Sacramento business openings outpace closures 2-1. It's exciting.
It is exciting. And I think one of the things that we've seen in Sacramento, when you look at urban centers throughout the U.S., downtowns are different. They used to rely on Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 workforce. And I think downtowns are realizing some of the permanency of some of the policies of work from home and remote work are going to create a different environment. And so during the peak of COVID in the last couple of years, downtowns lost a lot of businesses. And so what we're seeing is businesses start to come back, and we're seeing numbers that absolutely are bucking the national trend. Our employees are returning. Small businesses are starting to say, you know what, we want to be back in here. We see the market. Our hospitality industry is growing pretty significantly. And so we saw about 45 new businesses open, about 23, 24 closed, which, almost doubles some of the trends as it relates to percentage from some of the partners that we usually track that are, in the urban setting with us.
Why are we bucking the trend? What are we doing differently than, I don't even know what city to baseline against?
It's been interesting. Our employee numbers, a good example, few of us went to the Sacramento Kings game the other night when they got destroyed by the Boston Celtics. And we were at Candid, which is a really good restaurant right across the street from the Golden One Center, and had a moment to talk to their owner, Oliver Ridgway, and said, how's business going? And he said, I don't know what's going on, but the last 6 months we have exploded. People are coming back. The sense of energy in downtown, even when there's not an event at the Golden One Center, people said, we have just been waiting to get out to feel comfortable. We've held on to a lot of our discretionary spending money, but we've just been tired of being at home, and we're looking forward to getting out more way and get back to a sense of normalcy, to be around people, to have some social collisions and interactions and just be part of an active urban experience. And so we're hearing that from restaurants. Mike Testa and his team at Visit Sacramento are saying that business travel has been slow to come back, but leisure travel is back in a big way. So people are staying at hotels, doing staycations, extending their experience to do that. And so we're seeing that with traffic counts on the street. We're seeing that in just the feedback we're getting, not just from people flying into Sacramento, but from locals that say all of the activity going on in the downtown core is something we want to be part of. And that's why we keep coming back.
Really cool. Social collision is not a phrase I've heard before. And I love anybody who works with me or knows me know I love phraseology or nickisms. I might steal that from you.
You can have it.
What's a social collision? I think I know what it is, but is it different than like hanging out with your friends?
You know what? One of the things that we really felt in the way of this remote work was, can people actually be effective working from home? Absolutely, they can. And there are some industries that probably make more sense. But we also know not having people in the office interacting with each other, these quote social collisions of conversations that wouldn't have happened randomly if you were not in the office together talking, collaborating, mentoring, and saying, you know what? You got a couple minutes. I want to just go over this idea I have. And you get a chance to have dialogue and purposeful interaction that you wouldn't have had when you're on your phone 30 miles away, just knocking off a list of projects you're working on. And I think it's a purposeful intent to have dialogue that is meaningful in a way that gives you feedback more substantively than you would have.
I'm glad I asked. I thought we are going to yuck it up and it was be funny, but that's actually substantive and it's different than just casually running into somebody. I had an HR consultant tell me one time that was working for me. The people that work remotely, they only get what's on the four corners of that call. So water cooler, debriefing in the elevator on the way to the car, talking about the client afterward. Like you miss all that. So I mean, maybe that's a collateral impact of social collision.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about you. Let's talk a lot a bit about you actually. 25 years as executive director. That's kind of unusual. I said CEO, executive director. It could be the same thing. It's interchangeable to me anyways. You told me you took the job in 1997, Michael, and said it was only for a year. What captured your attention and why the heck are you still in the same job after 25 years?
All right. Well, I don't know how much time we've got here, but I got to just tell you why I took this job. It's a great small story in itself. So I was, a 27-year-old employee. I can't remember. And actually, I'm coming up on 27 years. I had taken this job doing some land assembly work for the city of Sacramento, working on waterfront and some of the pieces of land. I was early in my career. I had just met then who was going to be my future wife. And I took this job with the city of Sacramento on a 3-year contract, making $35,000 a year. I thought I was killing it at that point. I mean, retirement was a couple of years away in my mind. I switched from Keystone Light to Heineken. I mean, I was living large at this point. And I got a phone call from then Mayor Joe Cerna that said, we're thinking about starting this downtown organization. Would you be interested? And I went and sat in his office, and knowing I had just signed this 3-year contract, I said, no, thank you. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. And so continued my work. And then about 2 weeks later, got a phone call from the mayor again with some of the larger developers, David Taylor, Scott Syfax, Roy Brewer, a lot of the folks that are leaders in this business community, to come into the mayor's office to talk about this downtown thing. And so slightly annoyed, I went in and said, what's going on? And they said, listen, we'd like to talk to you about the downtown job. And before we get started, we wanted to let you know we just canceled your 3-year contract with the city and wanted to know if you'd be interested in this downtown job. And I said, well, it does interest me now, and would like to spend a little bit of time talking about this. And so I took the job and I told them, they said, here, make us a deal. Take this job for 1 year. If you don't want it, we'll put you back with your city contract at a 30% increase on it. And I said, all right. And a year from now, I'm going to go back to that job. And 27 years later, here we are.
Amazing. Tell us about the job. I talked about before about you're the point person for businesses in a larger Sacramento area of 2.5 million people. Tell us about your job. Let's go backward to go forward a little bit.
This organization began as a kind of a marketing promotions. The early precursor organization was called the Downtown District, and its goal was to provide some entertainment, some levity, do some events and activities to the downtown core to make the experience more enjoyable in the way of activations for whoever was coming downtown. So that kind of evolved into looking at urban centers across the U.S., the Philadelphias, the Austins, the Baltimores, Washington, D.C.s, that all have realized more needs to be done in order to generate some real momentum in these urban centers to provide services, what is called over and above baseline services, everything from clean and safe to destination marketing, advocacy, event management, but they are called business improvement districts. And so it's actually a legislation change that needs to be done in order, similar to like a Mello-Roos district for property owners, that you overlay an assessment district, but then you would go, using you as an example, to a Nick Warner that owns this large building and say, hey, we're going to assess you, but these are the services you would get for your building. Are you interested? And so we actually had to run enabling legislation in 1995 with Assemblymember Caldera to create the first business improvement district. The Downtown Partnership is the first business improvement district in the state of California. There's over 300 of them now, and the evolution of these districts from tourism districts, wine and grape districts, the hospitality districts that link hotels. But the 66 square blocks that we created for the Downtown Partnership was the first one. And its focus in 1996, when we started, was clean and safe, and then everything else. Everybody said, if downtown is going to be successful, we need to spend our time focusing on making downtown look better, feel better, smell better. I mean, there was a lot of things that were the priority. Yes, economic development, yes, advocacy are all important, but let's set the table to make economic development. And so we started off with a staff of like 3 people and a budget of about $300,000 or $400,000. We now have evolved as an organization. Every 10 years, you have to go out to renew these districts. And so we're right now in the middle of going out to all of our owners to say, we want to renew for another 10 years. Selfishly, I would tell you, I don't know where the downtown core would be without the work that we've done down here over the last 15 to 20 years, just because public sector budgets and capacity have fallen off. We have filled a void. We are, I think, at about 75% approval on the petition that we have now that we're going to be turning in a couple weeks. We will be fine. We will renew as a district, but the times have changed. Downtowns will be different, and we're telling that story. Pre-COVID, Nick, we had 100,000 employees on a daily basis down here. We're probably, if we're lucky, 2/3 of that now. Does that mean that downtown won't be successful if we don't get back all the employees? Absolutely not, but it will be different. We're talking to the state of California about, hey, what about some of these underutilized state office buildings? We're talking with Sac State about potentially moving one of their campuses downtown. What if we had 3,000 students down here and just make it up, School of Public Affairs down here that would want to tie into the Capitol, tie into internships, tie into the momentum? What if we looked at some of these other buildings as housing opportunities? People want to live and be part of an urban experience down here. Some of the things that are working, restaurants, hotels, some of the major festivals that the Visit Sacramento team is doing. When there are events on the Golden One Center, the downtown core is packed and it provides an opportunity. And so fast forward, remember I said when we started, we had a staff of 3 and about a few $100,000 budget. Well, we're presenting about an $8 million budget and a staff of about 54 that we have moving forward starting January of 26. And the organization has evolved. We've got a full-time deputy district attorney on staff who manages bad behavior. We do local and national lobbying on things that impact property owners. We do a full slate of special events and the kind of evolution of the marketing and social media and things. We are active in recruitment of new businesses. There's not a week I am not asked by either an employer or a business of, hey, we're trying to recruit this business. Would you come and talk to our employees or investors about why downtown? And so this organization, as much as we're an advocacy organization, this is personal to us. We want downtown, and this is really legacy work. What we're trying to do to generate some momentum here is to create an urban center that this region can be proud of.
Yeah, really impressive. Anybody curious why Michael Ault's been so successful as a leader? My goodness. I mean, I knew a little bit, and frankly, I mentioned this to you in our pre-production interview. My wife, Katie Warner, who's been my business manager for 30 years now, she met you when she was at Bass Tickets. And I think you were working on, if I recall, bringing the Olympic track and field. I've been 20 years or almost 30 years of her telling me, Michael Ault, thinks you're a star. And I know you a little bit, and I see downtown and the way it's evolved and ebbed and flowed and now thriving. And so to hear the substance and the evolution is really impressive. And now I know, like, Katie, I got it. I'm going to call him, I promise. And we're starting to see why.
Yeah, she was down here at a time when downtown, I like to tell the story that sometimes I wonder how politically correct it is, but we were hanging our arms around this downtown thing that really wasn't the prettiest in the early years. And people were like, just trust me, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. As we've evolved, we were on some real momentum, in 2019. And things were moving, waterfront. We had MLS soccer in the rail yards. COVID hit, went down. And I really found myself in really a quandary from a leadership standpoint. And a lot of people, and I know one of the things you talk about, Nick, is the importance of leadership and the importance of stability of true leadership. It would have been very easy for me to be down. And I had a lot of really good friends and frankly, a lot of board members when we were in the peak of some of the social protests, COVID, work from home. Downtown was a ghost town. Businesses were leaving, and this is just a few years ago. Say, how are you still smiling? What are you still doing to stay positive? And I thought about it a little bit. I hate to run, but I run a lot just as a stress relief. But to think about, I've got a lot of younger staff here, and I've got a younger staff that don't have the same barriers and historical knowledge of where we've been that are excited. They're excited about what we're doing. And if I come in and say, be down and, oh my gosh, we're starting over and do that, that will infect, if you will, the environment in the office and some of the momentum. So we've got to be aspirational. I've got to be able to say, this is going to be hard. We need to move on with this. What we're doing here makes a difference. There's a core thing that we say is regions are defined by their downtowns and the identity. And whether you live in Roseville or Folsom or Elk Grove or Davis, what downtown Sacramento's perception is important to the identity of this region. And we want to be proud of it. We want to continue that momentum. So yes, we've been kicked, but let's continue to fight and fight through this in a way that we're not giving up. Some of the things we talk about with city council and these folks on a regular basis, 40% of the city's property tax comes from downtown. 42% of the city's hotel tax comes from downtown. It became very clear to us that we were taken off of a lot of people's radar as it relates to future investment, and they were focusing on other markets. And so when Sacramento looks, and when you talk to Mike Testa in Sacramento, when we look to investors that are making an analysis on who are our competitive cities, it's not the Los Angeles, Chicago, New York's, our peer cities that we are in most competitive, the Long Beach, the San Antonios, the Charlottes, the San Jose's, the cities that have similar capacity. And so one of the things that we've done is, we've doubled the size of the convention center that now gives us the opportunity to do 2 full citywide conventions. We've added 5 new hotels, 3 more under construction. We've seen a tremendous amount of investment in residential housing. It's still difficult from a cost standpoint to build housing downtown, not just because the cost of product, but also the cost of money these days. We spoke on Thursday last week at the groundbreaking of the $2 billion Kaiser Medical Center that's going to be a level 1 hospital, bringing 3,000 employees a day, spending discretionary money downtown. You've got Major League Soccer that's going to be coming into the rail yards, purchased by the first professional sports team owned by a Native American tribe. Next Monday will be opening day for the A's in West Sacramento. The hotel owners are already talking about being sold out for many of the big games and weekends. So you know what? Let's embrace what is working. Let's quit talking about where we've been and what the challenges have been. And I think that that's something that we're really trying to be purposeful on. There's a lot of opportunity for us down here. And we talk a lot about the social realities of what is going on the streets and some of the challenges. The numbers as it relates to true homeless and these things have been a challenge. The numbers are getting better. There's been some recent rulings that have allowed for better enforcement and accountability. And I think there's been a disconnect over the years that, the Downtown Partnership and downtown communities anti-homeless. We understand the reality of what's on the street and what is taking place, but whether you're homeless or not, accountability for bad behavior needs to be a priority. And that's just what we've been asking for. But perception is everything to us. And, Nick, if you come downtown for dinner and have a bad experience, you're going back, you're talking to your neighbors about it and talk about what happened. And that impacts future opportunities for visitors to want to come to the downtown core. So yeah, we wear a lot of hats, to be sure.
We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. The law firm of Scholes, Brick & Rogaski is a go-to partner for me. I work the most with partner Michael Rogaski. I go to them for business contracts, strategic legal counsel to maneuver through or around complex business situations, HR and employee issues, startup needs, intellectual property protections, collection matters, and recently the purchase or sale of a business. I really like the fact they tell me if they're not the best fit and they give me a warm referral if I need it. Also, unlike so many attorneys, they're totally level-headed and calm. I've experienced it like their slogan says, small firm service, large firm result. Contact Michael Rogaski at sbrlawsd.com. Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips is as creative and as willing a travel partner as you can find. These days, you can plan a lot of trips on your own, but for those trips that require more intricate planning, tons of time, or local contacts and savvy, Kathy's the best. My family and friends have worked with her countless times in every travel country, setting, and season you can think of. Contact Kathy with a C at shipsandtripstravel.com. Yeah, really impressive. I appreciate that. One of the things you mentioned was your team going from 3 to 53. Let's talk about that for a minute. So as you know, I'm a business coach. That's how we get to this call on this podcast. And in my view, your job as the leader is to attract A-level talent, which is hard and important, but as importantly is for you to put that A talent in a position to be effective on the team and for their career. What are your thoughts about recruiting and then from there putting people in the right position over time?
We've been dealing with a lot of transition in the last couple of years. And if I have a weakness from an emotional standpoint, I get attached to the team. You know, we work together closely. I like the staff that we have. We are very purposeful in who we hire to make sure that we think they would be a good fit. Nobody is above doing anything in this office. I don't care if it's this will date me a little bit, but we've got a big mail out of something that we're going to do. Hey, all hands on deck. We're all in the conference room together working on things to get out. But the work that you do here is infectious. What we're doing is trying to make this urban center a special place. And we find, and team members will come back and tell us, man, when I go travel to other cities and people want to look at the pictures I've taken, I'm now taking pictures of street poles and garbage cans and median standards and hanging flowers on, we need to do this in our city. And you become committed to understanding the work that you're doing makes a difference to the other users that are part of this. And so many times the staff that we have that come in have this real belief and have told us there are other jobs we could have taken that probably would have paid more money, but this work is going to make a difference and I want to be part of it. And as they evolve and move forward, a couple of them just have left to take next jobs in their career. They, are emotional. They talk about they don't want to leave, but I'm like, listen, I hate that you're leaving, but this is what you need to do. I mean, my job should be here to coach you up, to give you the skills you want, give you that confidence and move on to the next job in your career. I'm proud of you. If there's ever an opportunity for you to come back, I'd like to have you come back, but you're not leaving negatively, and we're all going to go out and have a beer with you when you leave, but you've done a kick-ass job when you've been here, and take some pride and move on and keep climbing the ladder of where you're going. And so this is more than a job. This is not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job. There are things that happen good and bad on evenings and weekends that we need to be part of. We need to understand we are the economic voice, and that can't just be me. From a leadership standpoint, about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a reality moment when I was out for a couple of days traveling with my wife, Christine. We went to Napa for a couple of days, and I purposefully told the staff, hey, I'm not in, hold my calls. I came back to 6 or 7 calls on my voicemail of people that wanted to talk to me about things that said, call me when you get back. And I realized at that point, there was not a voicemail call that I received that any of my staff could not have taken. But people are so used to just saying, well, if Michael Ault's not here, then I guess I just have to wait, which really highlighted for me, I need to make sure that I know and let them know this is a team. This is not a one-person operation here. So I've talked purposefully to the senior staff about the receptionist to say, hey, I need to talk to Michael on X. He's not here, but Scott's here, Danielle's here, and these people have that. And so even in some of the public addresses I do, I'm now starting to incorporate more of my staff so people understand this is an organization run by a group, not just an organization run by an individual. And it gives, I think, some confidence to these staff to know they're appreciated. It elevates their profile. It lets board members know when they have questions. If I'm not here, there are other people they can talk to, but you start building up that sense of confidence among this staff to know that they're valued for their opinion.
Like if Michael's not here, call. Yeah, it's not that at all. I noticed over time, you talk about that. I was learning so much from my staff from different experience, different ages, different time of career, just different perspective. And I remember coming back from a meeting and one of my teammates said to me, "Hey, was I okay in there? I saw like you were taking notes. Like, did I screw up?" And I said, "No, I was taking notes on what you were saying. It was really smart. I hadn't heard it before."
You find validation in things in different perspectives. And to some extent, and not to date myself, to some extent, I've been here 27 years. I'm not naive enough to think I know all the answers. And there might be some things that from an evolution. I mean, I get some of the staff that have great sense of humor, especially on social media when they're like, let me update some of what you're talking about, make it sound a little bit more cool and hip. And I'm like, that's fine. You're not hurting me at all. But the relevancy and taking advantage of the enthusiasm of these younger staff, the much that they acknowledge and appreciate the opportunity. Sometimes, I had a staff member that worked for me for about 3 years and was at the printer one day. And I had them come into my office and I said, hey, come into my office, sat down, and she looked mortified. And I was like, what's going on? She goes, I've never been in here. And I was like, you never been in my office? She goes, no, I just never knew if I could come in.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh my gosh, if I'm setting up that environment,
That's on you, right?
I now purposefully engage the staff. Hey, come on in, talk. What are you working on? Now, are they my day-to-day direct reports? They're not, but I found myself a lot of times, we've got 5 or 6 people in the marketing department. There was a time I had no idea what the level of what they're all working on. I know they do great work, but it's important for me to spend that time letting them know I value their work, letting them know I'm aware of it. I don't need to read every document they have, but at a full staff meeting, when they're talking about something, I want to be able to say, yeah, I'm familiar with that. I'm aware of that. Great job on that project, to check in. And so I now, when I come in the mornings, I'll walk different ways through the office, say hello to people, talk to people. How was your weekend? To know that this is not a stay away from my office situation. I mean, if you guys have any questions, come in. And that has changed the culture a little bit. People stop in sometimes just to say, hello, how was your weekend? Great. How were you? And I think it builds a sense of collaboration that, if they've got things that they'd like to think about or challenge me on things that we didn't do or should do, that they've got a willingness to know, I'd be receptive.
Yeah, they may not think your sense of humor is contemporary on social media, but this is contemporary employer conversation. Really impressive. Can I dig at you a little deeper? Can I keep at it?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I appreciate the setup. What do you suck at? How do you deal with your deficiencies, Michael? It's pretty clear you're good at a lot of things, big things. What do you suck at still, and how do you deal with that?
I really have a tendency to take things far too personally. Going through this renewal campaign is a great example. You're familiar from your years in politics. This campaign, it's an election, and you need to pull together signatures from 50% plus one of all of the property owners in order to pass it. Now, we're approaching 75%. And on any given election, if you said I won with 75%, you would say that's fantastic. But it's those owners that are like, we're not supportive. We're not doing it. It bothers me. It bothers me at 3 a.m. It bothers me driving in. It makes me angry to know, how could you not see the work that we do? And I have got to switch from taking it so personally to figuring out what are things we could be doing different on some of these owners to make sure we can show value. Sometimes it's walking through the office and saying, I can't believe they didn't support that and do that. That's not helpful for the other staff either. I've got to manage my time a little bit better. I have no downtime. Christine and I are going to be going next Wednesday to Hawaii with a group of friends for a week. And somebody asked me last night at a reception, so are you good at shutting down your phone on it? I was like, nope, I'll be on it in the morning. I'll be on it in the afternoon. But you need to look out for your own well-being. And I need to be able to have some downtime. It impacts my own mental health. It impacts my own relationships. It impacts things to do to prioritize what's important. I don't discount we and myself do a good job in this organization, but you have every right to put pause and take some time to yourself and do that. Somebody said to me the other day, when is the slow time of year for you guys at the Downtown Partnership? And I said, I've been waiting 27 years for that slow time.
I don't love that from I'm just going to put my business coach hat on, take my podcast. hat off and put my annoying business coach hat on, which is it's not the best leadership modeling, like the best leadership behavior, especially people with young families and kids. And with 53 people, we ought to be able to like get a backup plan for folks. And then I merged that with Good to Great, one of my favorite business books. Talks about one of the chapters like blew my mind. I read it again. I read it in grad school and I read it again recently. And it says, I think the chapter is, it applies to you, it applies to me too, is beware the charismatic leader. Because what happens when the charismatic leader leaves? Is your company good to great? Well, Michael Ault leaves after, wherever it'll be, 32, 35, how many years? It's impressive and it gets you where you are. But I don't love it. I love to hear your comment. I don't love it from a leadership standpoint because of what it does to your staff. Nobody can outwork Michael Ault. Even on vacation, he's up early. Like, relax. I'm like, no, my boss never relaxes. I can't relax. Comment?
I agree with you. I worry about that perception. There are times I come in the morning and I will go into my director of community services that manages all the clean and safe operations. He's like, hey, I got 3 texts from you last night at 3, 4, and 5:30 a.m. And I was like, you know what? That's my bad. It was things that were on my mind that I want you to deal with or address in the morning, but it's now waking him up. He's now got anxiety thinking about that. Does that mean I'm not doing a good job? And that wasn't my point. It was just things I wanted off my mind to do that. And so could those things have waited till the morning and been just equally as effective? They absolutely could. But the ability to pull back a little bit. I've got a big personality. I like a lot of the social interactions with what we deal with. A lot of my life now is spent dealing with, electeds, dealing with a lot of the political environment. But my job has changed. And I think that that's part of the evolution of what these positions, as you evolve in your career, is that I'm a really good writer. I never get to write anymore. Now I write talking points, hand them to somebody and say, turn this into a
Yeah, I'm familiar with the model.
Yeah. You lose some of the personal ability to have the satisfaction of starting and completing a project. I don't do my own projects anymore. I manage other people's projects and give feedback and communicate where they're at. But, it's as much in a kitchen standpoint when you look at restaurants and hiring restaurants, the one guy that stands at the end of the kitchen, they call the expediter, the one that is make sure that things are going out the right way and looking good. I feel is more where my job has ended up. And that's not a good or bad thing because you hire a good team and that's what you should do. And you hire a good team that does good work, that gives you the ability to have confidence in what they've done. And we have a tremendous team here at the Downtown Partnership that I think really believes in the mission of what we're doing. But the role that I have played has changed. And when I leave this organization, which, ultimately will happen, I won't die here, but there are days I think I am going to. But it'll be important to carry that sense of you need an advocate. You need somebody. This is full contact, this job. I mean, you've got 600 property and business owners. I've got 50 people on my board of directors. You've got a ton of elected officials. You've got strong personalities and developers and owners and these firms that all are at the point now of saying, well, city, county, state budgets are falling down. So all of this is on you. And I got an award at the Metro Chamber a few weeks ago just on the business stuff. And one of the guys that introduced me, Mike Testa, said in his introduction to me, and I giggled about it, but there's some truth in it. And he said, Michael Ault has been in this job for 27 years, but on most days he finds himself digging out from under the latest bus he's been thrown under. Because as we all know, COVID was his fault. Homelessness is his fault. Public safety is his fault. And we are just a very visible, I think, target for a lot of people that nothing else is working. So you guys better fix it.
It's a savvy intro. I mean, it's painfully ironic, but like a smart intro. We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. Three Bridges Consulting did the video on the recently rebranded NickWarnerConsulting.com. I really love the video because it helps me sell by speaking directly to my prospective clients. Dennis and Sean at Three Bridges Consulting are high-level storytellers for the purpose of helping my prospective coaching clients understand what differentiates me from the pack. A recent new coaching client literally said to me, "You don't need to sell me, Nick. Your video sold me. I understand what you do and how you work with me as a client." That is a true story. I love that. Contact 3BC at threebridgesconsulting.co. Ken and his team at Connect Strategies head up my post-rebrand digital marketing campaign. I'm moving up the rankings for business coaches and consultants quickly. Connect is 20 years in the business, and I feel like they're really focused on my account. I refer business coaching clients to Connect too, and I get really good reports on result, professionalism, and drive. Thank you, Connect. Contact Ken at KNECHT strategies.com. You mentioned big personalities. Let's talk a little bit about role of mentors then and now. Feel free to name names if you want to, but also negative mentors. What are role of mentors in your life?
So early on in my career, these are names many people may know, but I came into this job and Joe Cerna, former mayor, was obviously a huge mentor and somebody that believed in a strong downtown. But I was hired by David Taylor, a developer downtown that developed a lot of the large buildings down here, Roy Brewer, that had a law firm in downtown Sacramento, Scott Syfax, Roger Kittredge, that was a CFO for the California Dental Association. When I met with them after that first meeting with the mayor and these guys on this job, and they looked at me and they said, "What are you afraid of? Why don't you want to take this job?" And what downtown needs is somebody with a fresh perspective. You've got good ideas. You're confident. Come in, shake it up, throw out ideas that aren't there. In my speech a couple of months ago or last month on downtown, I said, Sacramento has a history of being a custodian for the status quo. This is fine. We're good. Let's just stay the course. But somebody needs to come in and say, we need to do things differently. We need to look at downtown differently. Downtown can't be judged as the only positive thing as we have employees that show up Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. What else are we excited about? How do we celebrate great food? How do we celebrate the social amenities? How do we celebrate activations? We fought for things like Golden One Center being down here. A lot of these guys early in my career really pushed me and said, don't be safe. You've been given this job because they want somebody to bring a different perspective, not just continue on the road that we've been on because it hasn't been enough. And so, there have been a lot that have moved forward. The Kip Blewitz with Rubicon Partners, many of the hoteliers, Mike Testa and I from Visit Sacramento. Mike used to be my marketing director here at the Downtown Partnership and now is a CEO over at Visit Sacramento. He and I talk probably 2 or 3 times a week on, I think this is a safe comment on the podcast, who'd you get your ass kicked by today? I mean, it's just part of the job that you take your blows and move on. You're never going to please everybody, but you lead with integrity. You lead with honesty. You sometimes have to say, you know what, I get that that's an issue. That's not something I can fix, but I'm happy to work with you to try and find a solution. I think early in my career, I made a mistake of saying, I got it. I'll take care of it more than I should have when I had no idea what the hell I was doing in that. But I just wanted to please everyone and wanted to make sure that I looked good. And I think I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, you know what, there's only so much you can really do and be effective at, but make sure that you're just honest if you can't do it. Lloyd Harvigo, that ran the Firehouse restaurant and was a big property owner in Old Sacramento, was my board chair for a couple of years and was one of the biggest advocates for me from a mentoring standpoint later on in my career and in his life before he passed. And I was at a dinner with him and his wife and friends about 3 or 4 years ago before he had passed. And she pulled me aside and she said, I want you to know Lloyd is proud of you. She said, the one thing he said to me early when you were hired is he said, he will be successful, but I never want him to lie to me. I always want him to be truthful to me. And if he can't do something, just say it and I will have his back 100%. And she said, he never forgot that and wanted you to know he was proud of you. And so that meant a lot to me. And it's a message for me with some of my staff here too. It's like, hey, we've got an impossible job, but just be honest. Hey, if I'm throwing too much at you, just tell me. Come back to me and say, you know what, my plate's full. This is what I've got. What do we prioritize? How do we get things done in a more effective way? Can some of these things that were a priority for you last week be moved around? Don't take it on. I don't want to see you in here at 7:00 on a Sunday night just because you're worried I'm not going to be happy with the work that you've done. I want a work-life balance, but I also don't want to be surprised. Don't say yes to everything. Just be honest.
Yeah. I've worked with humble, successful leaders. I would definitely put you in the humble, successful leader category. Tell me about family in that same vein. That was really interesting to hear about mentors and not just the names of how they've impacted you, but how about family in that same vein? When you're driven like this, creates a lot of stress and you bring it home. How does that work with your family?
It is. So I'm an emotional guy, so I'm hoping this stays on the rails here. But it's hard. I mean, Christine and I are coming up in April at 30 years marriage in a world where marriage is becoming increasingly difficult. 30 years we're pretty proud about. She and I would both tell you if we were on this to say it was 30 years of all harmony and bliss would be naive on both our parts. But this job, when I was probably 10 years into my job and we saw where this was going. Christine, who does communication work, decided, you know what, I'm going to leave full-time job. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to take some clients and be able to be a better gatekeeper of balancing her job and family and not having that stress that was impacting us of, you remember what it was like early on, who's going to daycare, who's picking up, who's going through this, and it's unsustainable. And it created a toxic environment for us of always having anxiety on us. And so this job has a lot of demands to it. And we've got two kids. One graduated Cal Poly a couple of years ago, and I've got a junior at University of Tennessee who's living her best life this semester in Barcelona, trying to just balance this. We, Nick, are having conversations right now about what's next for us. I'm just turned 57. I think to myself, 5-6 years maybe to continue to do this. That assumes my board wants me to stay, which I think they probably do, but trying to figure out what we're doing and making sure that we're having walks and talks on, we're still good, right? You still happy with me? Because the job now, 2 or 3 night meetings a week, there's an event on the weekend, come home. We don't have a ton of downtime, but what I've learned to be better at in the way of communication is my day can be incredibly stressful and exhausting. But when I come home, the easiest thing to do when I get asked, how was your day, is to say fine and grab a beer and do nothing. But what I'm trying to be more aware of is the importance of the connection with Christine and I to be able to say, you know what, it was brutal. How about we go take a walk together and talk about it and talk about what's going on. So we begin to support each other in the way of that dialogue. It's easy to just be exhausted and shut down a little bit and move on. But if you're going to, I think, create a true sense of support with your partner, then that's something that we've been trying to be more purposeful about, because this job carries a lot of stress and a lot of baggage. There's a lot of good things that happen, but this is not easy work. And sometimes having a voice of reason that is not in your day-to-day circle at the office to give you perspective can be really helpful. And I don't think I took advantage of that near enough in my early career.
Yeah, you're an evolving soul. You're a humble leader, humble husband, humble dad, trying to get better all the time, aspirational, purposeful. I like your verbiage. We're in the bottom of the ninth. Can I hit you up with some coach's corner questions?
Sure.
What's been the most influential mistake you've made or lesson you've learned in your career?
Assuming I had all the answers, there were many times I felt it to be so necessary that I was the only voice on certain things that needed to be said, and not reaching out to many of our other partners earlier in my career to say, I need help. Asking for help is something that's hard from an ego standpoint for a lot of people to do, and not having the answers and trying to bullshit it and trying to find a way that you give the impression that you're completely confident is a mistake. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm going to reach out to some people and expose my lack of knowledge on something and really ask for support. Because as I've evolved in this career, I realized there were a lot of people that I talked to about the same thing afterwards that said, I was always here. I was always hoping you would reach out and talk to me on that and been helpful, but I didn't want to step on your toes. I knew it was your project, but I had done many examples of what you were needing, but I kind of let you find your own way. And so I think that there are times when it's okay to just simply communicate, I need help and I need support, and reaching out for it and not feeling ineffective by doing so.
Right around top of my lobbyist career, a client said to me on an issue we lost on, Nick, last to know, last to help. Why didn't you reach out to me? It's a great answer. I mean, I'm still almost embarrassed about it to this day. I could have helped. I didn't want to reach out. I felt like I was supposed to have it. And then we lost and I hadn't asked for help. It's one thing if you win and you don't ask for help. I like this ask for help. It doesn't have to be a sign of weakness. You don't have to lead with, I don't know anything. I'm a mess. I'm not sure. It could just be, hey, you bring something really valuable, or what do you think? That's really interesting to hear from you. What's a standout quality you look for in a member of your team? What does Michael Ault have to have in a teammate?
You got to be willing to have a sense of humor. You got to be willing to move on from a defeat. You've got to be willing to be able to take functional criticism, because this job, there's always people throwing arrows at us, and you've got to be able to have the ability to effectively communicate. I need people that are willing to be collaborative and to work with us and to be willing to roll up their sleeves. Many times people have said, hey, I'm really a good worker, but I like to kind of work by myself in my own and do that. And I need people that understand, to say this is a family is probably an over exaggeration, but this is a group of people that have come together that like each other. There's nobody in this office that doesn't know in general where everybody's at and who's got, and maybe a little bit of a challenging space and what can we do to help. We've got a conference room. Majority of the staff have lunch together. They talk with each other. They know what each other's doing. We don't work in silos here. We work collectively. One of the first questions that we ask when people come is, what's interesting about downtown Sacramento to you? And, occasionally we'll get, well, it's complicated to get there because it's a long ways from my house. It's like, well, all right, that's probably not going to be a good fit for us.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I was just interviewing for jobs and I saw this pop up, so I thought I'd pop in.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. This is going to catch you in the gym or on a walk or driving in to think like, oh, I should have said this. But what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Well, early in my career, we had some real challenges related to momentum in the downtown. This is way before COVID. And I had a recruiter reach out for an opportunity to do a job like this in New Orleans. The opportunity to leave, the opportunity to do that job would have paid more. And I sat down with one of my board members and had just a candid discussion over a beer on it and said, why would you leave? Well, God, the money, that would be great. And at the end of it, I really thought to myself, I want to finish what I've started. I have a sense of responsibility to complete this. This will outlive me. This is work that I want to be able to look back on, and I can go chase money and do that. But I've got an opportunity to be seen as somebody that truly was instrumental in remaking what is the capital city of the state of California. And that is more important to me than making 10 grand more and moving across the country to do that. And don't give up just because it's hard. Don't give up just because it's complicated. Running away to a new opportunity, you're going to find yourself 6 months from now having these same challenges in another city and realizing you may have given up on something that could have been one of the most substantive things you've done in your career. And if you hate the job, that's one thing. But if you're leaving just because it's difficult, rethink that, because you're better than that and you've got an opportunity. And now's your time to double down, lean in more, and you might end up being more proud of this than anything professionally you've ever done.
Really good. Really, really interesting. What are you excited about going forward? And what should I have asked you in this interview that I didn't ask you, Michael?
We get a lot of social media staff, and they're in their younger 20s. They read everything. Half the time I'm like, I don't want to hear about all this. But some of their comments have been, everybody is looking at downtown as it's on its death spiral of employees are leaving, and where's downtown going to end up? And I think what's got me excited is downtown is going to be different, and being different is great. And honestly, we may have been over reliant on downtown's only big driver is the office market. Having an office market dominate downtown for over the years, we're always going to have Class A office space down here. That's going to be part of the reality. But if we can see moving forward, yes, an office market, yes, an explosion in new residential development, a potential for a Sac State campus to bring 2,000 to 3,000 students downtown, student and faculty housing on Capitol Mall, the A's for 3 years, a new Kaiser Medical Center with 3,000 employees, the rail yards beginning to be developed, not only with housing, but with a major soccer stadium in it, new hotels that are going to add to the convention center. I think we will see a downtown that is more diverse in its offerings. We will see a downtown that isn't just active Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We'll see a downtown that becomes a true urban center that has a variety of hours and activations. And when people talk about, historically, it was, you got to go look at Portland, you got to go look at Austin. A lot of what we are doing here, I think, will create such a unique destination downtown that I think will accomplish a lot of what the goals that people had ultimately for what a capital city and what downtown could be. And so I'm absolutely excited about it. I think that the next 2 to 3 years are going to be transformational for downtown. I think you're going to continue to see businesses open. I think you're going to continue to see people engaging in downtown in non-traditional ways that they haven't. And, even starting July 1st, the governor has said employees are back 4 days a week. And so there's some momentum, and we need to capitalize on that momentum and yell from the rooftops to the people that haven't been down here, we've missed you. We missed you coming downtown. Come back. Look at all the things we're doing. We're going to start doing activations and farmers markets and concerts during the day so employees come back. The environment around their buildings are more engaging, and it's going to be different, but we think it could even be better, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard job for you to walk away from.
Yeah, it will be.
It's really exciting. I mean, there's one exciting thing after the next. Even though there's a lot of hard stuff, this is really exciting to hear what you're talking about. I had a young lawyer tell me, I was doing a team building for a law firm recently, and she said, I went away to school and then law school, and I came back grown up, but Sacramento had grown up when I left, and she was telling me how much she likes it here. 28 maybe? I thought it was a really cool statement. I left and grew up, and Sacramento grew up while I was gone.
Right. I guess last comment on that. One of the things that I spoke at one of the Sac State graduate classes of people that were graduating in public affairs a while ago. And one of the women that was leaving and moving to Southern California for her first job. And she said, early in my life, I could not wait to graduate and leave this community. She goes, now I can't wait to come back. And she goes, there's a lot of my friends that have relationships outside of the Sacramento area. And they said, where are you going to go after you graduate? And their hope is that even if they have to go somewhere for the first few years of their career, that Sacramento ends up being home because it's changed in their perception, and they want to be here because it's home for them in ways that they never fully appreciated growing up. So that was good validation for me.
Yeah, outstanding. Michael Ault, you did an amazing job on this podcast. Thank you to our outstanding team at Podigy Podcast and to our producer, Greg Suris and Riley Byrne. Thank you so much to the entire team at Podigy, and we'll see you next month on Together at the Top. Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We will be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.